Genki desu ka, minasan? Welcome to the Tachiomi podcast. I'm your host, Joseph, and here we have Benjamin live in studio for the first time.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's Ben.
So good to see you face to face, man. Not having to do this over a computer. It's awesome. How's it going, bro?
Oh, it's been really busy, but it's great that we've been able to meet face to face now.
Yeah.
For the first time.
I know. We're siblings, and yet we have not met each other face to face. This is the first time. It's good to meet you, Benjamin.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Joseph.
Finally. How's school going?
It's pretty busy, but good. How's your work?
Hey, I'm not in school. Ha ha ha. No stress. I mean, that's not sure. I've got work and stuff like that too. But so, what manga, anime are we going to be talking about today, Benjamin?
Okay, this time, for the first time, I think we are able to say that we've watched and read all of the manga and anime.
Hey! For the record, I have been watching. I've been reading all the manga, and I've been watching. Well, maybe
that's
not all
what I'm saying.
the anime.
Both of us. Both
okay,
of us.
Fine.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is the first time that I've actually done my homework. So hooray!
I don't know if we should be including this as podcast hosts, basically proving that we're not watching or reading the material we're talking about. I don't know, man. We should cut this out. But hey, I will say at least I'm reading all the manga for sure. And I'm watching maybe about 50% of the anime. The best parts, at least. No, it depends on the anime too. But anyway, okay. We should keep stopping. We're just like digging each other like deeper and deeper in the hole. We just can't get out now. I need to let go of the shovel. I mean, the problem is, I just don't have time to read all... Like, a lot of these have books, they have manga, they have animation, they have live-action movies, and you just simply can't keep up with, like, reading all the manga, reading the books, watching all the animations, and then watching the movies. That's my excuse. That's horrible, but anyway... So, let's see, we're talking about Ajin today, right?
Yes, so let's jump into it.
Tell me what's the plot of Ajin, Benjamin? What's happening?
Well, to summarize it in 30 seconds.
Alright, go, 30 seconds.
It's basically about Kei. Kei, this main character, he's this high school student and studying for his college exam, and then he basically gets run over by a truck, and he finds out he's an Ajin. And Ajin are these so-called demi-humans that regenerate, and they are... A lot of people don't know what they are, and so they're really scared of them, and so the government pretty much has taken them in and in captive. And
well, that's the thing. Ajin are basically immortal, right?
Yes.
So the people, these Ajin, these demi-humans, they can't die. Every time they're killed, their body regenerates. But so what everyone thinks that the government is to, like, whenever these people are found, it becomes a huge commotion, right? And people are going crazy, and you think someone's dead, but they're like coming back alive. So the government is supposedly like taking care of them.
Yeah.
But we kind of find out they're not really, right?
Mm-hmm. So basically, main character Kei and other people, like, there's leaked footage, but the Ajins are being experimented on, and in very unethical ways. So the main character Kei is also captured, and he's taken into government. He's being experimented on, and then he knows the truth, and then he meets this guy called Sato, which we will talk about later in depth. But he meets the guy Sato, and he notices the dangers of Sato, and he basically starts fighting against Sato and tries to stop Sato.
Yeah, so Sato is kind of like... Sato, we find out, is also a demi-human. And in the beginning, he's a very attractive character. It seems like he has lofty ideals, and he tries to, like, become friends with Kei. But I feel like Kei kind of senses something is wrong with Sato. And in the beginning, he kind of goes along, but he realizes something is just really messed up and wrong. So he decides to not join Sato and Sato's groups of Ajin. So I think Sato is trying to basically liberate, or at least when we first meet him, he's trying to liberate the Ajin, right?
Yeah. So he's basically trying to, I guess in a sense, negotiate or kind of force the government into providing the Ajin and all the Ajin's freedom, and so that... Well, he basically says that he wants a world where Ajins don't have to fear and hide. So that's that's what he proposes in the beginning when he's talking with Kei, when the first time they meet. And he seems like he has a lot of charisma, he's very, he has a good heart, and, he cares for the other Ajins, and, he really wants to help the other Ajins, but quickly escalates.
Yeah. So Kei gets captured in the government facility. The government are doing experiments on him. And I guess from the governmental standpoint, it's like it's really beneficial to have a human that won't die. Yeah. Because they like cut off organs, or they cut off hands, so they can do all these medical experiments on them. And the moment the patient dies, he basically comes back alive. So you have unlimited tries. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. You can test drugs. They were testing weapons, seeing like what kind of weapons do what kind of damage to the human
new cars,
body.
medicine,
like crash tests, like these things that you previously couldn't use humans for. They're now able to use humans, and the government is making a lot of profit off of this.
Yeah, but like the biggest thing is they don't see Ajins or demi-humans as humans.
Exactly.
That was very... In the beginning, you know, Kei is in one of his classes, and they're talking about Ajins, and they're saying, you know, the teacher says, Kei asks, you know, aren't Ajins also humans? And the teacher's like, what are you talking about? They're not humans.
Of course they're not, yeah. So Sato comes in, he rescues Kei, but as they're like running away from the government facility, they kind of have... They basically part ways. They have the disagreement, and Kei runs away from Sato. So then what happens next?
Well, then Sato basically starts... Well,
he starts recruiting other Ajin, right?
We found out that like he didn't actually come to rescue Kei. He actually came to recruit the other Ajins or find other Ajins that are willing to follow his basically crazy ideas. And
his ideology, basically.
Yeah.
And join his group of Ajin group. So he starts recruiting other Ajins too, and all these other humans who they've probably died once and they came back to life, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm an Ajin. But they don't want to tell their friends or their family or anyone else, because the moment people find out, then they know what's going to happen to them. So, by the way, we should also talk about the Ajin's ghosts too.
Yes. Okay. So basically what the Ajin's ghosts are, you later find out that they're called IBMs.
That's like the technical
more scientific
term. Yeah,
but
scientific
like mostly it's referred to as the black ghosts. And
we can talk about the powers later.
Yeah.
But we find out there are some Ajin who can do it and other can't. Some can have more ghosts than others, and like these ghosts have different special powers, right?
Yeah.
So this becomes a really big part of the story as well. And
there's also this ability called screaming, or basically the Ajin can use.
Yeah,
and they can pretty much paralyze humans. That is very introduced in the beginning of the story, but later becomes kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. So he's recruiting. So Sato starts going out and recruiting all the Ajin, and then basically the story goes out. It becomes like an all-out war between humankind versus Ajin. Basically, the Ajin are led by Sato, and Kei, very interestingly, he ends up fighting for the human side, and it's like a cat and mouse game where they're each trying to capture each other, and they're each trying to foil each other's plans. And Sato and Kei go back and forth, and Kei is a really intelligent, smart guy too. We'll talk more about Kei and what makes him unique later on. And then Sato too is Sato is just Sato.
Yeah, there's no word to describe Sato besides he's just Sato.
The best villain that has probably ever existed so far. One of the best. Okay, we can discuss that later too. But so they go back and forth, and so there's also there's the manga, I think, and there's also the animation, and there's also a live action too. So the animation, you're saying there is anime. There's 2 seasons, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's also, like you said, a live action film, which we haven't covered, but animation is very interesting.
It is very interesting. That's true. It's I don't know. Some people really seem to like it, and other people didn't.
For the anime, I think it was very good in the sense that it was kind of new art style of anime, and it was 3D graphics and wasn't.
It was 3D, yeah.
Yeah, and
it was something I haven't noticed before. It's very new. It's not like the traditional manga styles or animation styles, because in the past it was very much either, if you go really back old, it was hand-drawn, a lot of those, like Ghibli movies or, Disney, for an example. Animation was hand-drawn, and then it eventually became computer, but it's still very two-dimensional. And then, but for the first time, this was 3D, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed like some people really didn't like it. What did you think about the animation style?
I feel like because I thought it was okay, but like I noticed when I was watching the anime, like I've watched it, at least twice, but like it was like that. I guess it did add more depth, but like because I wasn't familiar with it, it felt strange. That's why it was kind of like this, this kind of hook or something that catches on, and I can't kind of like. Well,
you can't shake it off.
Yeah, I can't shake it off, and it's kind of bugging me the whole time. I felt like, but like, I thought it was innovative, maybe, but.
See, it's really interesting because I personally liked it. It was new, it was something different, and especially in a world where so much is the same or often repeated, like it was a breath of fresh air for me, and it was very interesting, and I liked it. But I was also surprised to see a lot of people were really turned off by the animation style, and a lot of people would like watch a few minutes of the first episode and would just stop watching because they just really couldn't get used to it.
I think the reason I'm more the person that kind of leans towards that I wish it was in 3D, but like I think the reason why is because people have this like mindset of anime is supposed to be like this, and then here comes the anime Ajin, which is like it's an anime, but at the same time it's using different art style, and that really might have like turned off people, and they're like this is not anime, and like that is kind of understandable, but. I feel like at least you need to give it a try, and like maybe not everything is perfect, so I would say
in that way I think it's breaking ground and it's trying something new, and for that I think it's really, really good. And I personally like the animation style. I guess it just really depends on the person. You don't care for it so much. I thought it's fine, and some people really absolutely hate it. It really just depends on the person. It's even worth checking out, but just for the sake of seeing this animation stuff. It's very unique, and it's very different from what's traditional. So it'll be interesting to see if this catches on and if this becomes popular going forward in the future, or if if people are going to hate it so much that it's not going to happen. Oh. And so, well, tell me, what do you want to talk about next about the anime?
Well, I think we won't talk anymore about the anime, but I would say even if you absolutely hate the art style, just listen to the opening. That just gave me the motivation to watch the whole episode. Like I know a lot of people like skip the openings, but like the animes I really love have really good openings, and I feel like most people will agree.
That's so true.
It really like gets you engaged and like kind of like draws you in, and like of course the story is excellent, I think, for Ajin, but I feel like the opening really enhances that experience of the Ajin anime.
Yeah, so the opening in Japanese is Yoru wa nemureru kai by Flum Pool, and basically it translates to "Can you sleep at night?" Which is it's a really good opening. It's kind of like a rock. It's kind of like a mix of rock and pop. It's a very catchy tune. I really like it too. It really gets you in the mood, and and not philosophical. Can you sleep at night? I mean, it kind of makes sense when you're immortal and when you're dealing with all these like really wacky powers. It makes you think.
Can I really die? Like, will I die from old age? It's just like brings up all these questions, and I feel like it really captures the anime really well, and it fits the anime.
Because you're right, like the opening song can really change how you think about the animation. Often like different from season to season, they have different opening and different closing songs too. But like, it's so good if there's a good opening theme song, an opening song, and this was one of the better ones that really matched. I think it really matched the animation, the anime. So. Okay, cool. Shall we go into depth of all the analysis of this? Okay, let's go. So one of the things that we were talking... Well, let's talk about the main character a little bit first. The main character is Nagai Kei. Nagai Kei, I feel like, is a very interesting main character. What do you think about Nagai Kei? What do you think about Nagai Kei as a main character? He's not a very traditional main character, is he?
I really agree with he's very kind of a breed of his own in that sense, and he... In the beginning, he's like... And we're like, who are you? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense kind of what he does. Like, sometimes
it feels like he's a very bland main character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't have a personality almost in the beginning. It's really interesting, but it doesn't, like, it's not in a way that doesn't turn you off.
Yeah,
because a lot of times when people say there's no personality, then that means it's just boring and it's not interesting. But I feel it's this main character it's hard to describe.
I feel like he really captures like what a Japanese high school student would be like, and then once you get the superpowers of Ajin, that really changes your life. And then he's really shooken by that, but at the same time, he kind of rationalizes it and kind of uses it to his advantage. So like he's very good at like incorporating those, you know, being an Ajin, and it really changes him as a person, but like he still stays consistent in certain parts.
Yeah, there's a lot of like sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies. I won't call him those things, but he has a lot of those tendencies. He has very muted emotions. You see almost no emotional range from him. Or like when you do, it's very, very rare when he responds emotionally. Like you said, he's a very rational guy. It's interesting because when you find you have this superpower of not dying, or when you're faced with this prospect where you're locked up in jail or you're being experimented on, people will go crazy. There would be anger, there would be frustration, there would be like joy, or there would be like greed, like, or, you know,
like the
power.
other Ajins really show that. Like when Tanaka, like we didn't talk about, like he was the second Ajin, I believe. That was third Ajin. That was.
Oh yeah, I think we should really quickly talk about, like, in this world, there's only been about like 42 Ajin.
47 Ajin in Japan.
47. No, it's not in Japan. It's the whole world. I think it's 47 is the only number that's been discovered, and there's only been 2 Ajin in Japan so far. So Nagai Kei becomes the third one, right?
No, first was this woman that later was transported to America. Second was Nakamura Shinya.
But I don't think the people. Okay, that's true. There was that one, but I don't think the public knew about it, right? Because Kei was Kei marketed as the second one?
No, he was marketed as the third one.
That's right.
But
they called it the media did it as the third one. Okay, but there were more, really.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Then that means there probably is a lot. Of course, there's a lot more than 47.
Remember, Kei, to give context, Kei was saying that, you know, there must be more Ajins, because he was explaining, you know, if I remember correctly, every 2 seconds a person dies, and, you know, he was saying that the death count of numbers is too low. Like he was in his calculation, he was saying there has to be more Ajin hiding, and then that leads him to think of that there's an Ajin community that is like hiding. But basically, I think to go back to the point, like he was marketed as a third Ajin, and.
Yeah, so he was the third Ajin, and like you said, we find out there's a lot more. I didn't think about that. That's true, because as the manga and the anime goes on further, you find a lot more Ajin. But anyway, so Nagai Kei, he is this really interesting character with these sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies. He doesn't have these emotions. And, like, even when he's faced in situations where there should be emotional responses, and you're seeing all the other Ajins who would respond in a human way, he does not respond in that way. Like, there's that moment where, so he comes face to face with these doctors. So he's been captured by the government, and the government are doing all these horrible, horrible experiments on him. His limbs, well, we won't go too much into detail, but he gets horrible, horrible things done to him as he's continually experimented on and killed over and over again. And Sato comes and busts him out, and he comes face to face with the doctors. And it comes time where Sato's like, hey, you should kill these doctors for what they did to you. But he doesn't do so.
Yeah. Also, another thing that I wanted to touch on that I really agree with that. I thought what was very interesting about Nagai Kei is Sato kind of talks about this too, but like, right after he's rescued by Sato, he's very, very calm. Like, he is crying, but, like, he's extremely calm, and Sato's like... And then he's like... He then apologizes to Sato, like, I'm sorry that I've been captured, you know, I'm sorry about that.
You had to, like, go through all this trouble to come find me.
Yeah, and I thought that was very interesting and added, like, who Nagai Kei is, he isn't like a regular person like what you think. And Sato's like, he first thinks that, oh, he's a failure, you know, he can't be an Ajin that's fit to follow my plans. But then he later figures out how kind of like when Kei walks by these security guards that are dead, and you know, Sato probably expects him to be, you know, reactive because he thinks it's a bit emotional. But like Kei is like, you know, it's
Kei
their
just
job.
totally ignores
He's
him.
like, it's their job. Of course they're gonna get killed. Like they were paid to protect, and if they die, they're dead. And he's very. You think he's very cold in the beginning. He's like, you know,
That's true. You almost think he's kind of an asshole-ish character, and he is very selfish in a way. But I think we like to call it selfish or arrogant or like uncaring, the way he acts. But in a way, you could also call it extremely rational.
Yeah.
When there's a chance to save someone while there is hope, he will do what is in his power. He will try his best to save a person, or he will fight, or he will do something. But the moment when he realizes rationally that there is no chance to do, like when someone is dead, he is able to, in ways that no other human can, he's just able to like cut off that tie and just move on. And even if someone dies in his arms, once that person is dead, he can just go on. And like, so a lot of people were saying like they didn't like this about Kei as a main character because they felt he was so cold. But you know, like you were saying, you can also just say like he's incredibly rational, and at all times he's just thinking, okay, what is my best move? What it should be done next?
I think it is very true to say that being very rational can sometimes be very unethical, it might feel like, because you're like doing something that can save others is not always the most like rational and most logical like means. You know, you're actually, you know, it might be the worst option at times to like go save someone. You know, it's, you know, weighing the risk. You know, you could get yourself killed, you could get the other person killed, you know, you can mess up the whole plan. So like maybe the best option might be to run away. Like if you're thinking in logic, you know, if you stop and think and, you know, calm yourself down. But like we as humans don't think that way. You know, we can't always be super rational. Like
I think that's what makes us human too. We have that rational aspect, you know, not right brain, left brain, but we have a rational aspect, but we also have a very much emotional aspect that makes us human, that where there's always this tug of war with. And we have this emotional aspect, these human bonds that we value. And I think when we're missing a lot of those aspects, we don't see that in Nagai Kei. And I think that's what turns people off, or like makes Kei feel like a very interesting main character. And like one of the things I wanted to talk about too is he's given a chance to kill those doctors. Yeah. Sato says
and like later on he's given many chances to kill people
and get his revenge on the people who did these horrible things to him. But he doesn't. And I'm wondering why that is. Because, again, a human response would be anger, hatred, revenge. And that's what almost everyone else in the manga does. And in many ways, they're not trying to glorify this main character, because he is definitely not someone you want to be like or glorify. But when he's faced with these situations, he doesn't kill those people. I don't know. I was wondering, why do you think he doesn't like pull the trigger? Why does he refuses Sato's like prompt to kill these doctors?
I think that might be his one that makes him human. He still has that emotional tie. Like that's why I think it's very interesting. Like he's extremely rational, and then he always weighs his options. But why? Like his mother later, you find out later, but like. He is an idiot in the sense she calls her son an idiot, and she tells that her father, like his father, was a very emotional person, and that's what she liked. She was a very rational person, but like she liked that emotional aspect. And she said, you know, she was telling her daughter, or Kei's sister, younger sister, that you know he is similar to his father in the sense he's emotional at times. You know, he's very rational, but at times he can be emotional. And I think that part of him not wanting to kill that person, because, you know, I think he's like not confused, but like he isn't like, he's like, you know, don't kill that person. And Sato's like, you know, why? You know, these people did this. And he's like, I don't know, but like, you know, he's not very clear. I don't think he ever like.
But no, I agree with you. I didn't think of that. I think you bring up a really good point. I think it's this one thing that keeps him from, he realizes he's Ajin, and he realizes he's not human anymore, but it's his one thing that kind of connects him to still being a human.
Exactly.
Is that like he's holding on to this last thing. He says, look, as the world goes to hell, as shit hits the fan, all these things are happening around me, and I could just totally become this Ajin person, like, and more I could be selfish. And he is very selfish, but like, and he holds on to this last thread of humanity, saying like, I'm not going to like kill these people, I'm not going to get revenge, I'm not going to do this. And I guess in that one point, like, he still has that connection with his humanity. And I really like that. I didn't really think of that.
I really think he's like drawing that line, and he knows that once he crosses that line, he can't go back. Like, he knows that, but like, I feel like he is very rational in the sense that like, he knows that how he was treated, and most people, it would bring hatred. So I feel like he's kind of trying to cut that spiral, like downward spiral of like people killing, and then they hate other people, and then they kill other people, and it just continues. And I feel like
I don't know. I feel like that's a really traditional manga main character thing to say.
Yeah, but like, he doesn't say that, but like, he acts. That's, I think, what makes Kei interesting is that like he doesn't, he's not very emotional. He doesn't talk as much, but like, he actually acts. He sticks to what he believes, and he acts upon that.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so in direct contrast with that, we have our by far the best character in the series, Mr. Sato. So, well, tell me a little bit about Sato. What do you like about him? There's so much.
I mean, every aspect about Sato is very awesome, and but like, I feel like you love Sato so much. I feel like now it's your turn to explain why Sato is so good.
Yeah, I do think Sato is one of the best villains we've encountered so far, and I think as good and as iconic and as memorable as heroes are, I think what makes a really good movie, comic, book, anything are the villains. When you have a good villain, that just makes everything so much better. We like our Batmans, we like our Spider-Mans, we like our Luke Skywalkers, but the ones we will never forget, we don't forget our Darth Vaders, we'll never forget our Jokers, we won't forget our Hannibal Lecters. It's those villains that we'll never forget, that is seared, that takes those pieces into masterclass territory. And we can debate about this later too, whether Ajin is a masterpiece or not, but Sato is one of those villains who is so charismatic. He is so unique, and he's by far the best character in this manga and anime. I would vote for him as probably being like at least the top 3, if not top 3 most badass villains of all time. And what makes him unique is he's very similar to Joker in a way. So, while you were telling me about like this comparison with Joker, what do you think about that?
I think that Sato is very black and white. He's extreme. Like, I feel like it's difficult for a character to be like black and white because there's always that gray area. But Sato is he knows what he wants and what he doesn't want.
So, quick thing, it's not like it's not like morally black and white. It's that black and white isn't like you're saying. He knows what he wants and he knows what he doesn't want.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, to touch on who Sato is, like, in the beginning, you really don't know who Sato is, but like as it progresses, you kind of figure out more. You get bits of Sato, and then your opinion. I think everyone's opinion changes about Sato.
Because in the beginning, we think he's kind of like a revolutionary. He's trying to start revolutions for Ajins. But the more you like see him, you kind of find out that he's not doing this for like some high ideology or to save Ajins. He's basically doing this just for fun. He's acting like a terrorist. He's trying to take over the country. Man, he has so many good one-liners. We can talk about that later too.
But like, what the Joker is he's pretty much a person who's playing a game, and it comes out over and over. It's repeated, but like, he kind of grows up with these games. Mario, Donkey Kong, Sato, and Pac-Man, and he talks about that. He makes a lot of reference to the games and all that. But like, he views life or everything as a game, and then. The whole reason that the Ajin, he explains that Ajin is, it's like what happens if another person puts a coin in for you to continue a life.
Basically, yeah. And you can continue playing the game. It's not over after you die.
So, like, I feel like he gets that thrill and he gets that emotional high from, like, enjoying that like extreme thrill. I feel like it's kind of like, what do you call it, the skydivers that like they have like extreme emotional high. I forgot what it's called, but like it's, you just get that, you know, adrenaline from like doing all these dangerous things. And
maybe in a way this is one of the few things that kind of leaves him being human. He's pretty elderly by now. Sato is like maybe 50s, in his 50s or 60s even, but maybe his whole life he's been living on the edge. But he's such a character that maybe he just can't feel alive in any other way. But he's constantly seeking conflict and fights and wars because that's the only way he can feel alive. And I think what's comparison with Joker. So you were telling me, we were talking about the Joker earlier too, that the Joker is really defined by Batman. The Joker is one of the best villains for Batman, and he's very crazy. He's sociopathic, psychopathic, whatever. And he's a very crazy villain, but he's all no. I don't know. He's also very rational. He's not. He's sometimes he's the most rational and not crazy person in the whole room. And Sato is not trying to fight for ideology or like chaos. Like, you know, Joker is trying to do. And Sato is also not, like, in comparison, like, against a hero or anything. Like you were saying, Sato is just basically doing everything for fun.
Yeah. So, like, even though, like, he finds, you know, killing and fighting very fun, but, like, once there isn't fun or enjoyment or entertainment, he doesn't, like, he stops. So, like, throughout the comic, like, there's his first wave, second wave, and third wave, and
these different steps to trying to take over the country.
So, do you want to explain the first wave?
Yeah, well, we don't really have to go into the waves, but basically Sato has these different stages, these different waves he calls them, and these are these different steps to try to take over the country. And some are like terrorist attacks, some are like assassinations. My gosh, he's such a badass villain when he's fighting against the cops. But, well, that's the whole point, right? When he's facing a challenge that excites him, then he is all in. Like, you know, when he's fighting against the best military force in Japan has to offer, their SWAT team equivalent and the SAT, Special Attack Force or something like that. I can't remember. And he's fighting us, and he's so excited. But then, like, when he gets to a point where he's, like, really bored and he's not interested anymore, he just stops fighting, or he's just, like, leaves it, ignores it, too. So, well, tell me about the waves that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so, like, the first wave is basically the first wave, he rescues Kei, and then
he's recruiting all the different Ajins, right?
And then I think the second wave is where he starts to assassinate all the important, like...
he starts assassinating all the people who are government officials and people who were doing experiments and related, like, basically the people who sponsored all and helped the government, like, experiment and treat Ajin people horribly. And then his final wave is...
pretty much, you know, destroying this Japanese self-defense force base, and then
taking over the country.
Taking over the country is his final kind of step.
Yeah. So Kei, after he kind of starts to see Sato's craziness or madness, which is kind of ironic because Kei is not very normal either, but he decides to fight for the human side too. And it's interesting because he has this fight. There comes a moment where Sato just keeps beating him at every step. Has Kei ever really even beaten Sato up to this point?
I don't think he's ever, like... I mean, like, the best he's done is, like, stop one of Sato's plans. But Sato just comes up with another one and just, you know, pretty much... Like, I think one of the successes, you may call, is when they were trying to attack the security building. And, you know, Kei is really... He was, you know, well thought. He made the plan. He stopped all the other... guys that were
basically Sato's minions, all the other Ajins who were like, so they're trying to protect this one guy from being assassinated, and Sato sends all his Ajin goons to go, and Kei comes up with brilliant plans to stop all of them. But then Sato comes.
Yeah, and he basically just, you know, wrecks the whole thing, and, you know, he kills everyone, and the only survivors are, like, the four people. It's Kei, Ko.
But I don't even think that's a success because the person they were trying to protect, that person gets killed. A lot of their, like, friends and security forces, they die. Basically, all the police and the cops in there, like, in the whole security building, almost like everyone is dead, killed, like, would that be a success? I guess Kei escaped with his life, and a few of his friends did too. But
like I said, I was questioning whether it's a success, but like he was able to stop one of Sato's plans, but Sato just comes around and messes with everything, and it's just it's like a game of tag. Sato just comes up with these brilliant things, and Kei is trying to catch up with him, and it's I think the whole comic is Kei is very brilliant, so he notices before other people what is happening, and it's basically him trying to intervene and kind of become this impediment for Sato.
Stop Sato.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but he just can't, because as brilliant and as smart as Kei is,
Sato
at
is
every
pretty
step
much,
Sato is just like, well, not just one step ahead. He's just always a step ahead.
And Sato is pretty much trained for this his whole life. He has experience of combat, and
so tell me. You were telling me about the background of Sato.
Yeah.
So what is his background like? Well, let's dive into more. What makes him an interesting character?
Okay, so we need to start at the very beginning. So Sato was basically, his father was British and his mother was Chinese, and that's where he gets his very small eyes, Asian eyes. But
his eyes going. Sato is so cute. That's the thing. Like, you can't hate. It's hard to hate this guy. As much as he's a terrorist and he's going around killing and fighting people, it's hard to describe, but he's such a likable character. He's having so much fun that you just can't really hate him. And he's such a badass and so strong, too. You can't help but admire him and almost kind of want him to succeed at times, too.
I feel like he's an entertainer. As much as he is enjoying, like for us, the reading audience, we also enjoy it. I mean, we probably shouldn't be enjoying about people dying.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, it's like him. It's like, it's showtime. He's basically, coming up with this brilliant show for everyone to watch.
So Sato's parents, and as a child, even his parents noticed that he's not normal.
Yeah, and you find out that he was actually, this wasn't when he became an adult where he became always violent. It was from a young age, of course, that he was very he was abusing animals, killing them, and his father notices that something is wrong with him, and he tries to stop him, and he hits him. And
at first you're like, oh my gosh, Sato is this crazy way because he was abused as a child.
You think that way, but then you find out later that he actually joined the American Navy.
No, I think it was the Marines.
Marines, excuse me.
Yeah.
And he goes to Vietnam War. Well, he finds that in the first 2 weeks of training, he was kind of
already recruited to be part of the top Marine force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's called the Team or whatever.
Yeah, whatever their code name was, and he fights through the Vietnam War, and they're sent on a special mission to save a prisoner of war POW that's left behind in Vietnam a few years later. And they go in and they rescue everyone, and you're like, wow, Sato's actually a good guy. He's saving these POWs in these concentration camps, and then
he's fighting for America and all that. But then you find out that he, again, this is Sato. If he doesn't find enjoyment in what he's doing, it was a very easy mission. His other teammates are saying, oh, this is a piece of cake, and oh, this is we're the best and all that. And then I feel like Sato doesn't like comfort. He always wants to keep going to next level, next level.
He wants to challenge himself.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's probably why we like Sato so much, is that he doesn't stop.
Yeah. And so he shoots the gun in the air. He lets all the Viet Cong know that he's there, and all of them are chasing after them. And as you go on, you find out more and more Sato just basically, I think he's just simply, even more so than Kei, he just doesn't have any morals, not morals whatsoever, but he doesn't have any empathy. He doesn't. To him, life is a game, so human lives are worthless to him in many ways. In a way, because he can't die, it's worthless too. And you kind of realize that, and you realize the dad and the mom kind of understood that their child was messed up, and he was killing animals and doing all these things even as a child, because he didn't even think it was wrong. To him, it was just fun.
And I think what is really interesting about Sato is he does not find out that he's an Ajin until very later on.
That's true.
And I thought it was very interesting that even before he knew he was an Ajin, he was in Vietnam. And, he fights all these Vietnamese and, he loses half of his leg, and he gets a big scar. And, he was basically like this veteran that was, a wound veteran. And he was ejected from the Marine and, dishonorable discharge. And he's like living his rest of his life, playing video games because I guess that's his new passion now, and he's always viewed everything as video game. But he is later recruited to come to Japan to use all his high military training and pass that on. So he goes to Japan, and then he actually finds out that he's an Ajin.
Yeah, and then for the first time, he's like, oh my gosh, I get to keep playing this game. Yeah. It's so much fun. But yeah, it's interesting because as crazy as Sato is, you like him because he's having so much fun, and you can't help but root for him. And there's also that ideological part where you kind of sympathize with his view on other Ajins. But anyway, yeah, so we've talked a lot about Sato and comparisons with Joker. Maybe we should move on. We'll probably, not probably, we know we'll definitely come back to Sato and Kei, but they're very similar characters, and in many ways they're also very different as well. I think another thing that would be interesting to talk about is the difference between Ajins and humans. What do you think is that? What do you think is the difference between Ajin and humans? Because to me, the only difference is basically one person can die, and the other won't, is immortal.
I like it. They say that they're immortal, but like they don't necessarily go deep into can Ajins die from diseases or not, because in one case, like or can they die from old age? Like it doesn't really go into depth with that, but like we know that it varies on like what happens. So like what if you like die from starvation or something like that. One of the girls, like she actually dies from starvation, but she comes back to life. And there's all these different situations where people are killed, or the Ajins are killed, and they come back to life. And I think Ajins are very interesting in the point that they aren't like this special tribe of like Ajins where like that their parents are Ajins or great grandfathers are Ajins. It's not
there's
like
no like DNA or like anything like that.
There's no such
at this
connection.
point of the story, we don't even know like how humans become Ajins, why some are Ajins, why some aren't, how it's triggered. We have no idea. There's still no explanation, right?
I think Ajins are fairly new actually. They came out in the past 20 years, so that's like it was the first Ajin was actually discovered in Africa, and like there's so much that like the people don't know about Ajin, and I feel like it's really difficult to define like what's an Ajin. I mean, maybe not. No, it's not difficult at all. Like one dies and the other comes back to life or resurrects,
but there's basically no difference in the way of like emotionally or rationally. Like the people in the manga or the anime, they treat Ajins as not as human. They segregate them. They discriminate against them. They hate these people. But they do these human experience, and they rationalize it by saying, "Look, these people aren't human, but they look like humans. They were humans basically until the moment they died and find out they were Ajin. Yeah. They have emotions. They have lives. They have friends. They have family, they have all these things, and the moment you are found out as Ajin, your past life is just all destroyed.
It's like it comes out in the comic or anime. It's like you don't know that you're Ajin until you die, and that I feel like all the characters that are Ajins that come out in the show, and that like it's when they die is really when they like change. Of course, like people don't come back to life, so you can't say that. But I feel like death is a very like it's when your life ends, and people usually, whether or not they're mentally prepared or not, like that is like in a sense it's like an end of that chapter. But like for the Ajins it's different. Like death is just momentary. Like it's one death. It's not the death, if like it's it's different for the Ajins. I think that's makes one different for the Ajin. It's their lives are disposable. Maybe even for them, they start like after a certain point they use that to their advantage.
I think So maybe we can like hit on some of the Ajin powers here too while we're talking about differences between Ajins and humans. So one of the things in the beginning they have like this Ajin scream or something, which is it's not so much of a scream I guess, but it's just it can momentarily when the Ajins come under incredible stress, they seem to like momentarily like be able to paralyze the people surrounding them. But the more like if the humans kind of eventually get used to it too. Like, so if it's their second or third time, it doesn't work quite as well, it seems like. But it momentarily paralyzes them. The other big thing is the ghosts. So, some like we were talking about earlier, some of the Ajin have ghosts, others don't. But these ghosts are like really interesting because they're incredibly fast, they're incredibly powerful.
They have these claws and teeth.
Yeah, they're like, they're almost like 7-8 feet tall. And they're incredibly strong too. Like they can cut up, they can destroy humans, walls, anything.
Yeah, concrete, glass, whatever. They could almost destroy that. And
yeah. And so I think what also makes this manga or anime very interesting too is how would you ever fight a war against people who don't die? And there's been a lot, I think, in science fiction and mangas and anime and books of like soldiers who are immortal, who don't feel pain, who don't die. But it's always like half-cooked or half-assed, whereas this story really takes it seriously. Okay, how is your strategy going to change when you're fighting against someone who can't die? Because obviously, all of a sudden, guns don't really become very effective.
Yeah.
You might be able to kill them or shoot them, but they're going to come back alive. And it's really interesting because this anime takes it to a very interesting cerebral level. So, like, one of the things that become incredibly powerful is a drug. Basically, what is it called? These guns that basically put people to sleep, kind of like anesthetic guns or something like that. And so in order to stop the Ajin, you can't shoot them with normal ones, but then if you shoot them with this, and if you can knock them out, if you can put them under, then they can't call up their power, and that's like one of the things that's one of the strategies that they use against fighting against Ajin.
Yeah, so like going back to the powers of what Ajin have, like we talk about these ghosts, but actually they're only visible to other Ajins. That's another big point.
Yeah.
And they like the time that they appear is very like certain Ajins, like Ogura, like there's this doctor that went and studied in America about like especially Ajins, and he explains that most black ghosts only last for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's like the average. And it depends on, like, you could, maybe once or twice a day.
Yeah, you can only summon so many. But, like, the stronger characters like Sato and especially Kei, they can summon a lot more than just 2 or 3. And their ghosts also last a lot longer, too. Yeah. And it's also interesting, so they start using these, like, tranquilizer guns or anesthesia guns basically to fight against the Ajin. But the really smart characters like... I'm sorry?
Sato.
Yeah, there's really smart characters like Sato or the Kei basically find ways to fight against tranquilizer guns. Like when Sato gets shot in the arm, before the drugs and the tranquilizing things can get through his body and puts him under, he just takes a knife and lops off his arm. It's like, it's so badass. But anyway, yeah, there's there's a moment where he's stopped the blood circulation in his arm. He's tied a band around it so the drugs can't go all the way up, or like, the strategy too. As soon as their bodies, like, they're fighting against other people, and their bodies, like, they lose a limb or they're shot in different places, they just shoot their own head and they kill themselves, and they kind of reset and start over because their body reforms into a perfect thing.
I think we should talk about the regenerating powers. That's really key.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of difficult. Like, we find out more and more about how you regenerate, but like, basically, like, it's whenever your bodies or any part was cut off, like, you're like, how the Ajin's bodies work is they start to regenerate, like the same, I guess DNA and cells start to reform, and
Yeah, and it's so the key thing is it starts to reform for the largest part of the body.
Yeah.
So like if your arm is cut off, then your arm is going to regrow from the body, not your body regrowing from the arm. If that kind of makes sense. But they use this in so many different ways too, because your body regrows no matter what is there.
Yeah.
If they if you cut off your hand and place that hand against the wall, then your hand is going to form anyway, and it's just going to destroy whatever that wall was there in the first place. And like they use this, like Sato uses this. One of the people is trying to kill hides behind like a safe room or something. You can't get in. And then like Sato lops off his arm, puts his arm against the thing, and when his arm reforms, there's a hole in the wall there. And yeah, so that's really interesting. And Sato also like the way he uses his powers just get crazy and crazier. When he's infiltrating the building, basically the building has top-notch security. There's no way that he can ever get in. And yet what he does is he cuts off his hand, he deep fries it, sends it with chicken, like fried chicken, to the security guards of that office, and they're opening it up, and they're like, oh, and they're like pulling out the chicken, and they're like, wait, what's this? This doesn't look like chicken. And that moment, Sato like jumps in, like not a wood chipper, but like in a machine, and he just basically gets chopped
like a
up
shredder,
into fine,
like...
he gets like shredded up into fine mist. But then at that moment, his largest remaining body part is that hand he cut off. So then he instantly regenerates where the hand is inside the secure building, and that's how he infiltrates the building. It's crazy, like all these strategies he comes up with. Or like the third wave at the Air Force. Man, that was so crazy. I was like, how is he going to take over the world? How is he going to take over the country?
He only has one body. He can only go to certain places.
Exactly. No matter how powerful he is, how is he going to do this? But like the plan he comes up, like tell me the plan.
Yeah. So basically, it's kind of similar with what he did with when he was trying to break into the security building. So what he does is he cuts his arm off and he leaves it at the Air Force base where he wants to regenerate. And then he gets on this air...
Well, so at this point in the story, he has successfully defeated and killed almost all the military that was defending the military base, and he's hijacked the base. Sorry. So
yeah, and then so he gets on one of these fighter jets that he already defeated all the military, so like he has that at his disposal, and so he gets on the airplane, straps all of these bombs on himself, and he flies it into whatever building he wants. And the moment before it hits the building, he pushes the switch for the bomb, and he pretty much kills himself. But like again, for this case, the largest remaining body part is his arm, so he regenerates. So that
at the back of the base.
So like it's this great synergy with the airplane jets that could go really fast anywhere, and the fact that he could always regenerate and come back to the base. So
basically, he can use these kamikaze fighter pilot attacks, and he can take out like. In the first move, he literally takes out the prime minister and like the next 4 or 5 people in line of succession. He takes out all the major generals, and like and because the fighter jets are so fast, they
go to
travel
like Mach 2.7.
Exactly. Like it took him only 40 seconds to get to the not the White House, but the equivalent national building where all these people are, and he just like suicide attacks them, and they weren't ready for it, and he totally cripples the function of the government and like taking out all these key things anyway.
And then he continues to pretty much destroy the infrastructure of Japan. And
it's just incredible. Like the strategies and the plans he comes up with are so good. So we've talked about a little bit about the Ajin and things like that as well. What would you say are some of the best lines of the manga or the anime? Best lines. So honestly, almost any Sato line is just really, really good. He's got these killer one-liners that are good. Kei has several really good ones too. I think I'll go with Sato. There's a moment where he hijacks the plane and he rams it into a building. And he totally destroys it, and he regenerates, there. And he was like, oh, that was maximum thrill, or something like that. That was awesome. And hijacking a plane, destroying everything, maximum thrill. But yeah, man, he's so good.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the K line, and he's basically like we told him, he was a very rational person, but like he says, like, stop acting like you have to be some sort of hero just because you happen to witness something. And he's basically, to give context, he's basically talking to this guy that's like,
so he's failed to stop Sato for the umpteenth time, and one of his friends is trying to convince him to stay and keep fighting against Sato.
And yet he's like, what hope is there? Like, I'm the other friend is like, are you running away? And he's like, yeah, I'm running away. Like, who can go against this guy? And it's just suicide. And then the guy's like, what are you talking about? You save these certain people, and like, why did you save those people? And Kei is like, I've been thinking about that. It's not like he's just like, he doesn't think about it. He actually thinks about these stuff. And he explains, like, for one of the doctors that he saved, he didn't just save the doctor because the doctor wasn't hostile towards or antagonistic towards him. He says that he is like, he understands Ajin, and therefore he has worth. And he kind of judges people. And then his friend Ko says like, oh, what, you trash person.
That's really asshole. Why aren't you saving some people? And
he's like, how disgusting of a person are you? You're weighing people. And then Kei in response is like, what are you talking about? Everyone does that.
So that's a really interesting thing that Kei points out that I don't think people think about, but it's actually kind of common sense when you think about it. We value different people's lives differently. Like, if you were to die, which I hope you would never die, maybe you're an Ajin, you're immortal. I'm just kidding. But like, if someone close to me died, a lover, a husband, a wife, a brother, sister, family, then you are going to be affected by that, and you're going to care for that. And yet, we know rationally in our minds that people are dying halfway across the globe from sickness, or other people are dying from car accidents or starvation or whatever, and we don't give a crap about it. Or we just don't think of it the same. We don't value, even though it's the same one life, we pick and choose which lives to value, and we ignore other lives. And Kei points out a really good thing is like, why is one life worth more than another? Shouldn't all lives be the same? And he basically points out this loophole in our thinking, our problematic way of valuing some people's lives more than others. And Kei basically says, the interesting thing about Kei, though, is he tries really hard not to give a fuck about like any of the humans. He tries hard to not care about them all. But I think in the end, he can't walk away, right? Yeah.
And the thing about Kei is that he doesn't care about most humans, but the people that he has connection with, he does whatever he can. He puts everything in to save that person. And so, but like what he tells Ko about is that, the only difference with me and you is that I do it consciously and I say it out loud. It's just you don't say that. You're pretty much a coward in that sense that you're not saying that, and you're just trying to be a hypocrite in that sense and saying that I'm doing this to help that person. And he's pretty much kind of pointing out that's kind of the egoistic view of like, I'm saving this person, but are you really? And why that person instead of the other person? So it's Kei brings up very good points. I think
he does, and in many ways, because Kei is such a not normal character, a very weird main character, I think we're able to explore what it means to be human in very interesting ways that you normally wouldn't be able to. One of the things, of all the different main characters out there, he might not be the most attractive or unique. There's always going to be a Naruto or like a Luffy, or Goku, or these main characters that are a lot more interesting, or likable, popular, I guess. But I think what makes Nagai Kei as unique as a main character is he's definitely the most realistic main character out there. The cliche with mangas and animes is, there's always that good guy and he wants to save the world and he can do it on nakama power and he's got tak no jutsu and he's got and it's very unrealistic. They always are talking about saving everyone without there being any sacrifices, and it's a very unrealistic way of looking at the world. And compared to that, Kei is a very selfish prick. He's an asshole sometimes, and he's not a good person. But he has a very realistic view of the world. But at the same time, he still tries to do good. in the end of the day.
And I think we call like Kei cold or stupid or very selfish, but like aren't we selfish and can be very cold towards other people? And we always cast that stone at other people, but like we can be like that. And like Kei,
I think the thing is like Kei very intentionally knows what's doing. Exactly. We just kind of pretend, or we like to think ourselves.
Yeah, like we want to be on the moral high ground. Everyone wants to be on the moral high ground. But Kei, in that sense, is extremely brave, and like in the sense that like he says like no, like I think this through. This is the reason why, and it's he might be a very like calculated and very rational person, but like that. I think I really like Kei in that sense, and he really throws that question at us. What is it to be a human, and why do we have these certain like emotions and ideas? And I really like that about Kei, and I think that's why it's Ajin. It becomes very philosophical, but I really like Ajin for that reason. That's if someone asked me why I like Ajin, and I would say it's that it really makes you think, and I think that's important to think about those things.
Yeah. And Ajin, I think one of the things of all the different things, the action scenes are just absolutely the best.
Yeah,
there's so much movement. It's so dynamic. It really of all the different things, of all the good things about this manga or an anime, the best things are just simply the action scenes.
I think in like maybe a half or 2/3 of this comic is action, and you feel like it's a very actiony comic. You might think of that, but like in between, there's these very philosophical and very serious moments, and I feel like that really does a good job of like the action and these really philosophical things. And
or there's like these cerebral moments too when they're planning or executing.
Exactly.
And there are occasionally those comedic moments too, and it's definitely not a comedy manga, and it's very few and far between, but it does balance all those aspects really, really well, wouldn't you say?
And I think it's really good that they spend so much time on the action, but it doesn't feel like redundant or like useless. I feel like there's some comics that are like, why do they keep doing the same cut over and over and over again? It's like, it's very redundant and, pointless. But like for this, like he has so much detail. The artist has like so much detail in like the movements and how they think and everything. And I think that makes it great.
And I think what also is a really good thing about this is that as the manga and the anime goes on, so does the characters. They grow. And the strategy and the fights change too. It's never the same moves, they're the same fights. Like Naruto. There's a Rasengan.
Yeah.
And then there's a Super Rasengan, a Big Rasengan, and then, he can do it one-handed, and then there's a Futon Rasengan, and then there's a Bijou Rasengan. It's just like, it's the same move, dude. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. It's just getting more and more powerful.
It's just packaged differently.
Exactly. But in this one, the strategies change as the characters learn, okay, if I can't fight with guns, then what do I do next? Oh, I'm going to use tranquilizer guns. What happens when tranquilizer guns won't work? And each battle is unique and different because the characters are building upon their experience of the previous ones.
And they're evolving and always adapting. That's what makes it really good.
And so each action scene and battle sequence is very intentionally thought out and always different from the past. And also, like, part of it, you're just wanting to see, like, okay, what crazy thing is Sato going to do next? Yeah. Like, you can never predict what he's doing, but it's just so good. And you're just, like, deep down, I'm just always rooting for Sato. I'm like, you know what? I know he's the bad guy, and I know that we really shouldn't be cheering for him. But you're just having so much fun. You're just like, man, I just want to see what Sato's going to do next. So, he is such a good character. Man, I cannot stress this enough. Like, there's many good reasons to watch this anime and read this manga, but definitely do it for Sato. That's reason one.
Take one for Sato.
Do it. Another reason is do it for the opening song.
Yeah.
The opening song is epic, so definitely go check it out.
Even if you only want to read the comic, just listen to the opening. That'll motivate you to read more.
And then Kei is an interesting character. Yeah. But still, I think the first two are more important. Or even, basically, this comes down to Sato, probably.
Yep.
Yeah. So, was there anything we didn't hit on or that we did not talk about?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that there's 2 seasons of the anime. I don't think there's going to be any more. The anime ending is a little bit different from the manga too, because the manga was not finished at that time. So when the anime ran out of source material, they naturally had to finish their own. But the anime is really good. The anime is very good. Towards the end, the last few episodes, it deviates a little bit, but its own ending is very unique and good. I would definitely recommend it. It's different, but it's still as good as the manga. The manga is really good too. It's far from over right now. So it's in the third wave, and Kei is trying to stop Sato from doing his attacks. But we have no idea how this is going to resolve, what's going to happen next. So there's still a long ways to go for the manga too. So
yeah, Ajin is one of those traditional. I mean, one of those things that I actually started from the anime, and like I really enjoyed the anime, and then I read the manga, and I fairly enjoyed both of them very well. So like the anime is very well put together. So
it is.
I would say it's a win-win, whichever you choose.
Yeah, it was also one of the first anime, I think, to show up on Netflix. As Netflix in the past few years has been getting a lot more anime, they realized that, hey, anime is pretty interesting, and they're like starting to sell it more. And Ajin was one of those first animes that started to show up on Netflix. So, guys, if you have Netflix, you can definitely watch it there. Definitely recommend it. So yeah, and there's also a live action movie too. I think neither of us have seen it. I think it just came out in Japan. Yeah, I don't know if we'll see it. I think it hasn't been a masterpiece. I've heard there's mixed reviews, but it's overall pretty well. But yeah, I guess someday we might see that. We might come back to. We definitely will come back to Ajin sometime in the future. When the manga, there's a lot more source material in the next coming months, weeks maybe.
And Sato won't just keep us alone.
Yeah. We need to figure out what happens with Sato, and of course Kei too. But, so I don't think this is going to be our last episode on Ajin. It's same with like One Punch Man or these mangas or these animes that keep on going. Whenever some big scene or something incredible thing happens, we'll probably come back and revisit them in the future. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. Anything else we should cover?
I think.
You think you're good? Cool. All right. Well, definitely would recommend it, guys. You should really check it out. Thank you, Benjamin, for joining me on this podcast today. It was really fun.
Yep. Yeah, it was nice to see you face to face.
It is.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and listening to our podcast.
Yeah, man.
Every week.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Leave a rating, review, 5 stars, 4 stars, whatever the max is. Give us feedback. Tell us how we're doing. We're also advertising for guests too. We have tons and tons of manga and anime to still cover, and we would love to have you as a guest as well. If you love this if you love this podcast, if you have a certain manga or anime that you love and you really want to talk about, send us an email. The email is tachiomi.manga@gmail.com. We have a website too, so look up Tachiomi Manga or Tachiomi Podcast and you can hit our website, and from there you can send us a contact, and if you're interested in joining as a guest, then we'll figure out a time slot.
Definitely check out our previous episodes too. This is not our first one.
So check them out. Alright, well, thank you very much. We will see you guys in our next podcast.
Smash that like button and subscribe.
There you go. Okay, 皆さん、では、さようなら。
じゃあねー。